that pulp. So I don't have to go through 145,000 hectares working with 3 lakhs of tribals to be able to do a value chain. So the point was that when you go beyond the value chain to create capacity, which, because it is my competence, it is something that I'm linking my business to those CSR models. Now, CSR by definition, if you're not looking at those aspects, people would generally look at 4 different stages. Now, one is someone says that I comply with all rules, I'm socially responsible, which is what people have said. Second is the checkbook philanthropy that you're mentioning. I write a check, which is fine. Third is my employees like Infosys, many others, where they're engaged in a lot of work in terms of doing things as well. So employee participation. And the fourth, when you embed it into the business itself, so that your business models itself also drives innovation. And you don't need to, you have a business model with you where I don't need to do all this. For example, when we buy wheat from each of us, I don't need to do that. I can go to the mandis and do it. I don't have to spend time with 4 million farmers to develop the back end. And then also have the situation of them selling to all my competitors. So these are capacity building other things. These would be different models. And it is not that either it's philanthropy or CSR or employee engagement. All these are different things that you can do in a portfolio. And that's the beauty of this, the entire rules that we are looking at. If it gives the board the freedom to go through this entire portfolio, I might do philanthropy, I might do employee engagement, I might do embedding, but all of this would go towards building something where I build social capital and environment capital and not just do my business. Because doing business responsibly, it's also responsible business to many. So these are issues that, you look at it instead of really defining it straitjacket to give the flexibility of innovation. And really the point that you mentioned right in the beginning, the transformational capacity of business to do this, right? Same way that I'm doing great products and great services, using the same transformation capacity to create more value. I thought I'll just make that clarification.
I respect the desire for flexibility, but I think what you're suggesting, if we keep it all, if what you're doing in the normal course, you classify as CSR, and maybe genuinely so. The danger there is there's so much rebadging that's going to happen. Effectively, everything that any corporate does, you can say is CSR. I mean, so, HDFC can say, I make gold loans, I'm taking poor people and releasing their capital. There's no end to this. So there'll be zero impact then if the minister or the government really wants some impact out of CSR. If all we're going to do is rebadge and all now look good through PR by saying we're doing this, all it'll be is just more PR and more rebadging. So I think we have to be very careful here. I don't deny that there's some good that's created, but if we just look within our supply chains and look at what we're doing with customers and just call it CSR, I'm not sure if that's good enough.
Which I think is important, and in fairness to what you said, that caveat should be re-emphasized, and that is when they do this outreach, the beneficiaries of the outreach need not come to them. You see? So it may go anywhere. For example, whether it's eChaupal, or it is IKEA educating kids, it's not as if those kids will work in these factories, And when that is done, there's not actually supply chain at all. It is something else. You may benefit from it, there's no doubt about that. But you don't restrict the beneficiaries such that they only come to you. Gold, for example, is something that comes to you. But in these examples, and you could multiply them, maybe you can think in terms of environment, raising environmental standards, you can do various things which don't really impact you, but impact the entire society.
Yeah. But then I think companies should report what % of that they're actually purchasing back, or to the extent I'm doing financial literacy, which may benefit my product, how much of it comes back to me versus I don't deny that a lot of it is good. If Amul is coming up with a new vaccine for cows, which leads to better health of all cows in the country, clearly it's for the benefit of society. And only a small % of it will come back to Amul. But I think there's a danger. I'm just saying that, if you just keep it as laissez-faire, keep it totally flexible. I'm not saying that ITC may genuinely be doing great stuff. It's not to single out anyone. I'm just worried, and we know how corporate India works. Even assuming that directors will play their role and everything will just happen and it's not mandatory. And I'm really worried about rebadging of expenses is what corporates will end up doing. That's what the consultants will be out, doing with corporates.
There'll be a lot of accountant consultants and lawyers out there who see lots of opportunities in this. So we have to push against some of that. Why do companies not have to report on laws compliance on the 98%? If that we are doing social benefit through our business by not polluting the water, by not doing this, by not using child labor, by not whatever, the laws of the land, and there are so many laws of the land.
Hello. Yeah, the rules do mention that what you do for compliance cannot be part of CSR, number one. And number two, this is a very, very thin gray area between business development and social and development. And again, what kind of accounting standards you use to define what you want to build to 2% will be in public domain also. So what the government is trying to say through the rule at the moment is this, that we don't want to get into defining as to how you should define, what should come into this 2%. You do it, and then it's loc large, put it in public domain, internet is there, let people see, and then maybe a couple of years down the line there would be greater clarity, I guess, is what we are trying to say at the moment. Because it's a very difficult thing to define. Yeah.
It can operate in a more dynamic mode and then the law again and
yes,
again.
Absolutely.
I think that.
Not too many rules, yeah.
Any more? One more. Okay.
Well, we have been talking that this Companies Act, which is being enacted, it is not prescriptive, or it is not, it will not lead to Inspector Raj. I have a example, which is a very recent example. We are just talking that Companies Act is being enacted. There is a request from one of the district collectors to one of our projects. It says that this is a national highway going by the side of your project. There is no fund available for broadening or repair of this national highway. So you give a donation of 1 crore for widening of this national highway. Now, as a part of your CSR. Now, is that right? I think Nikhil, if you could comment on this.
That's a tough one, and I did mention in the...
Is it allowed in the rules?
This is going to happen and happen very rampantly. Yeah. So what you will have to do, if you are the guy who's talking to the DM there, that if you do have your CSR policy in place, number one, then suppose road construction is part of that policy. Okay, you will have to do your own assessment and tell the DM that fine, if I can projectivize it, and if this is the way it has to be done, and you also want to make sure that your PR continues well with the DM, maybe put up a grant proposal in your system. But then it has to be projectivized as per the CSR policy, because your internal auditor will question you any grant release which does not match that CSR policy.
No, but then can the government do something?
Are you sure?
Can the government do something in this?
Are you sure you can do this? Just putting it in your policy.
No, not because he's saying.
Please.
Please understand what I'm saying. No, please listen what I'm saying. I'm saying that once you do have a CSR policy, you have to first make a CSR policy, right? Basis of the rules.
Right.
Now, if something comes as a request, does not match that policy.
No, is it a request or is it or else?
No, it is almost an order.
Yeah, so.
And please, see, we have a policy which says that we could provide rural roads. We have a policy which says that we could provide rural roads to increase the outreach. But now, can government do something to restrain these kind of, not requests, rather, mandates being given by the local authority?
We are not venturing into that at all at the moment.
No, but
all we can say, or what I just said in the beginning.
So I'm not talking about the requests which come from politicians. I mean, that also goes beyond that.
That is acceptable.
I'm talking about a case which is coming from a district authority where we have to operate. So can government do something to restrain these kind of,
So what I would like to submit on in response to this is that, number one, if your policy says rural roads construction is permitted, number one, so it does fall within the ambit, okay? All I'm saying is you have to make a check whether this is permitted within your policy or not. If it is permissible, and if you then do your due diligence to see that it is a viable request, then you can put it up as a grant proposal within the cycle of your grant giving. is all that I'm saying.
Okay. Any more? I think let's take a last question.
Hello. Yeah.
Someone there for a long time.
Yeah. See, I am Rajneesh Julka, and I am from private sector. Just to support what our friend Mr. Jan has saying, and I think we in the corporate world many times come across that kind of a thing, that either the district administration, they come onto your door, or the politicians, they come onto your door, and under the word of CSR, why don't you give this money for this religious congregation, or for owning the park, or for doing even the public transport? So I think this is a question which needs to be addressed by Mr. The Minister for Corporate Affairs, how to control that. And in case if the rules are not defined in clear terms, I hope it will not leave loose-ended things to the politicians or the district administrations to interpret the way they feel like, and on the other way harass the corporate. That is my question number one, and any of the panelists can answer. The second is, no doubt CSR is these days is catching up, and we have started around couple of years back, but still there is a good amount of mismatch between the professionals who handle the CSR and making this as a subject in our B schools or E schools. Still, when you go to the university campuses, when you ask people that, okay, what is your viewpoint on CSR, the people, they say, is it company's statutory requirement or it is customer service record? So there is a mismatch between the two. So probably I think we need to look at the holistic view, that how we actually get this thing implemented. One is the intention, the other is the implementation and action. And both these things, at least we from the corporate, now we have started feeling the heat with 2% coming as a law. Probably not defining it properly, it will give good amount of power to the district administration and the politicians to interpret the way they feel like. So these are the two questions any of the panelists can answer. It's okay.
To start with the second part, the easier one also. See, we at the IIC at least are in the process of launching some courses also on CSR, and there's a pilot launch, so sometimes next year, where we would like to have CSR professionals, about 200, to be produced over a 9-month program that is under development at the moment, because unless there are CSR professionals there in the market to be hired by corporate CSRs, you will have a huge problem in that bandwidth issue. Because how will you develop your bandwidth to spend the money? In fact, a lot of NGO leaders would also need to be trained, because if they want to, access this grant, otherwise it might be a case of who moved my cheese for the NGOs. So it will be very challenging, and we are developing various courses at the institute, which we would come out very soon with.
But I think to start with, it would be better in case if it should be put as a part of a curriculum, at least one chapter in the B schools or E schools, or at least in class 12, at least the new generation, they know, so that by the time this gets onto the full bandwidth, at least the people are aware of what it is.
So at the institute, we are aware of this, and we are developing content, we are developing modules also in a very rapid manner, and we propose to launch. We are doing that, we are aware of this.
Very good. And the other question, I think, is too general a question. Today also you are handling your politicians and your local officers.
Yes, sir, we are doing it.
The passing of this law is not going to make the reality on ground any different.
No, but it is going to make it little bit legalized.
Remember, Augustine said, God, if he chased, but not yet.